Hello, everyone. So recently I've been reading a book called The Easy Path. Venerable Children gave some teachings a few years ago on this text, but there's also a book available. It contains the root text by the first Panchen Lama and commentary given by a contemporary Lama, Gyurme Khyentse Losang Jampa, who he spent time teaching over on the East Coast, Connecticut, and also Guis Maja Center in Washington, near Washington, D.C. But now I think he's moved to the San Jose area, and I met him there a couple of years ago. Really lovely Lama. So I've been wanting to read this book for years, but didn't have time. So recently I had time, and there's a few copies here. So it's a lovely book. It's a Lamrim text, but much shorter and simpler than some of the others, such as Lamrim Chenmo by Lama Tsongkhapa, which is 3 volumes and rather complicated. So this is relatively short and simple, but very, very beautiful. And early in the book, I came across this story that I liked and would like to share it and talk about it with you. So it says, during the Buddha's time, there was a king. One of his disciples was a king named Prasenajit. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. And he was very busy with his kingly duties and asked the Buddha for advice how to practice the Dharma in this kind of situation where I don't have that much time. And the Buddha recommended 3 practices. And I thought this is very relevant for today. Most people are very busy, even here at the Abbey. And even now, probably more busy than usual. People outside having to find ways of looking after their children while their schools are closed and so on and so forth. So I thought this is really nice because there's so many Dharma practices. Many, many different practices. So even if we do have time to practice, we may wonder, what should I do? Prostrations or shamatha or Lamrim meditation? And even if I do Lamrim meditation, there's so many different topics to meditate on. So we may sometimes feel, whoa, what should I do? So this is like 3 really useful practices we can do in our daily life, even if we don't have time for formal meditation. So these 3 practices that the Buddha advised are rejoicing, bodhicitta, and dedication. So Venerable Children has been talking quite a lot recently about rejoicing, so I won't say much more about that. I think everyone has a good understanding of that. But I thought it might be nice just to take a minute right now and do that practice, because it is something you can do in a very short time. So I invite you to close your eyes and let your attention settle down in the present, the here and now. And then bring to mind something that you may have observed or heard about recently or any time where somebody did something good, like an act of kindness, a good deed. It doesn't have to be something huge, but just even helping a neighbor or a family member with some need that they have. And it could be something another person did or something you yourself did. Just bring to mind a good deed, an act of goodness, an act of kindness. And let yourself feel joyful, glad that that was done. That was a good thing. I'm glad that happened. So hopefully you'll feel some sense of joy in your heart. That's what rejoicing is all about, the word joy in the middle of rejoicing. You feel happy at a good deed, an act of kindness. And let that feeling of joy suffuse you. Fill your whole body, your whole mind, like water filling a sponge. And just let your mind rest with that experience for a short time. And I think it's also nice to go a step further and feel the wish that more and more such acts of goodness, acts of kindness are done by you, by others, by everyone. May these acts continue and increase. Okay, so you can open your eyes. So you see, it doesn't take very long, even a minute or less than a minute, to do rejoicing. And I think it does feel good, even just a tiny bit, to do this. And also they say, research shows that kindness is contagious. So when an act of kindness is done, then it will inspire other acts of kindness by people who observe that, by the recipient, by the person doing the act of kindness. So there's this rippling effect. Goodness, kindness spreads. And when we can rejoice in it, then that will also inspire us to do more acts of kindness. So I recommend that. And I think it's also good for your immune system. Because I'm not sure about this, but I've heard that, when people are depressed and down and unhappy and anxious, that they're more susceptible to illness. So the opposite would be true. If you're happy, positive, then that makes you stronger to fight off viruses. For example, yeah. Okay, the second one is bodhicitta. And the full meaning of bodhicitta, of course, is aspiring to reach enlightenment, to become a Buddha, to help all living beings throughout the universe. It's a big deal. And I remember once attending a talk by Lama Yeshe. It must have been in the early 80s. He was giving a talk in London. And he said something about bodhicitta that really, I found really helpful. He said, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words, but what I remember was, he said, bodhicitta doesn't have to be this big deal, becoming enlightened and helping all living beings. Bodhicitta can just be you and me, just like here and now. You're with another person and you're attentive to that person. You're caring, you're kind, you're helpful. And I don't know, for me that was really helpful because up until that time I'd always been dealing with the huge, full-on meaning of bodhicitta and thinking, wow, I don't know if I could ever do that. But he really brought it down to earth, brought it down to right here and now, something you can do, something you can get your teeth into in this life, in this moment. And also there's this danger, I think, that if you do get too occupied with the full meaning of bodhicitta, that you might forget about the people around you. I've experienced that myself and also observed that with others. You can be actually unkind to the people in front of you because you're so busy trying to reach enlightenment to help all sentient beings that you're not attentive to someone right in front of you or right next to you. So that doesn't make sense. So we have to start where we are. We have to start with the people around us and just try to be aware of them, understand they're another human being, another sentient being like me. They want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. Is there anything I can do to help them? Like the Dalai Lama says, try to help others as much as you can. And even if you can't help them, at least don't harm them. So that's a really good advice to live by. And I'm preaching to the choir here because everybody, the Abbey is an amazingly wonderful place where people are incredibly kind. But there's more people out there who are listening to this. So it's something we always need to be reminded of. And it's something we can do in our life, even if we're very busy. Just being attentive and kind and ready to help those around us. Even just being smiling and friendly is something helpful. And then the third practice is dedication. So this is when we do create merit or virtue, to dedicate it. We're always being reminded of that. Make sure you dedicate your merit. Otherwise it could be lost. And it's good if you can dedicate each time you do something positive, create virtue, to dedicate it. But sometimes it's hard to remember that, especially if you're busy. But at least at the end of the day, it's good to take some time before you go to sleep think back over your day. I mean, we're advised to try to bring to mind any mistakes we may have made, any non-virtue we may have created, and purify that, make sure that gets cleared away before we go to sleep. But it's also good to think of whatever virtue, good things that we've done, and feel good, rejoice, again, rejoice in the things that we've done, and then dedicate them. And of course, dedication is to incorporate all living beings. Enlightenment, that's the best dedication, dedicating to enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And, and we may not have done anything spectacular during the day, like saving somebody's life, but we probably didn't kill anybody, and that's something to rejoice in. I didn't kill anybody today. Wow, that's great, because that's the virtue. That's the virtue of non-killing. Right? So just by not killing somebody or anybody, we create virtue. Not stealing, we create virtue. So by not doing harmful things, we're creating virtue. Keeping our precepts, we're creating virtue. Trying to practice, we're creating virtue. So there's lots of things we do during the day that are virtuous and that can be dedicated. And also, I heard that when we dedicate merit, we can not only dedicate our own merit, but the merit of everybody else. I was really happy when I heard that, because I tend to be very down on myself and think, oh, I don't have much merit. But I can dedicate the merit of others. The Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, my spiritual teachers, all sentient beings, all these wonderful people doing all these wonderful things out there, creating merit. I can dedicate all their merit too. So I like to think of a huge ocean of merit that's been created today, and I dedicate all that merit to enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. And also they say the best way to dedicate merit is to remember emptiness. So being a student of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he's always reminding us of that. When we have teachings, at the end of teachings, he'll sometimes go on for 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just dedicating merit. And always bringing in emptiness. So just to, even if we don't fully understand emptiness, but just to remind ourselves, the one who has created the merit and is now dedicating it doesn't exist inherently, is empty. The merit that we've created, that's also empty, not solid, real, independently existing. And the object to which we are dedicating enlightenment, helping all living beings, these two are empty. So just to remind ourselves that all of these things, all the different elements, the three spheres in the action are empty of inherent existence. So they say if you dedicate in that way, then that merit is kind of protected, safeguarded, won't be destroyed no matter what happens. Anger, wrong views, anything, nothing will be destroyed, and it will last until enlightenment. So these are three practices that don't take a lot of time and are very helpful, very beneficial, both for the present moment, to keep our mind positive and happy, and also for long term, and for all living beings. Thank you.